Hi, this is Rob Handfield, and we're doing a brief video to discuss some of the research we did on addressing social issues in commodity markets for the Journal of Supply Chain Management. This is published by Rejaul Hasan, Marguerite Moore, and myself, Rob Handfield. I think the issue of social and human rights in the supply chain has been a big issue ever since the Rana Plaza disaster made it front page headlines in most journals today. And this started to raise public awareness about the terrible conditions of many of the apparel factories in Bangladesh. This was a study that we undertook starting about 2 years ago. And Rejaul, who's with us today, is from Bangladesh. He's with the Wilson College of Textiles. And Marguerite Moore is also a professor in the Wilson College of Textiles. And we decided that it was really an important issue that we should look at from an apparel supply chain perspective and also from an ethical and human rights perspective. The paper is coming out this April 2020. And Rejaul, maybe you could start by giving us kind of an overview of what are some of the key insights of the paper that really I think are going to create awareness about what's happening over in Bangladesh in the apparel sector.
Sure, Dr. Handfield. So yeah, as Dr. Handfield said, this is Rejaul Hasan. I finished my PhD last year from Wilson College of Textile, NC State University, and currently associated with the Supply Chain Resource Cooperative, College of Management, NC State University. So some of the key insight in this paper is really, let me give really a flashback. 2.5 years back, we started this project with an understanding that if we can really put together and total cost of manufacturing of a basic textile article and to look the deep inside that what is really the different cost proportion going to the different stakeholder or different participant in the entire supply chain. So from that perspective, we start to contact with some of the factories that I worked with in my experience, and we start to see if we can really gather that kind of information. After contacting with, I believe, more than 50 factories in Bangladesh, we identified 9 factories that has really a robust data set, can provide information to us that will enable us to build a cost model of a basic textile product. And part of this reason is because to build a total cost of ownership model, you really need a robust data set, and these are the information which is very proprietary. So that really was one of the obstacles for us to get through and to gather those information. So as soon as we are able to really gather those information, what we do, we apply the total cost of ownership methodology to build a total cost model for a commodity market, and in our case, it's an apparel basic T-shirt. And when we build that, starting from different elements of the textile manufacturing, so it's from the yarn manufacturing, then the fiber, then the dyeing and finishing and cut and sew, to shipping and the retail store. We look at all the stages, and we found the total price of that T-shirt in the retail store is $8. And the model reveals that really the bulk part of this total price is going for the materials cost, which is 77%. And really only the 2% is going for the worker wages. So really a lot of social incidents, a lot of worker rights issue we are talking about around the wages, around the violation of the workplaces. And we always give an excuse that this is because of the price pressure and because of the higher price of production. I think during this study, we identified that that's probably not really the cases, because the cost for that goes to the worker wages and the factory building is really, really minimal compared to the total retail price of that product. So from that light, we made 3 policy recommendations in this paper. I hope we'll have the discussion in a few minutes. And we also analyzed the stakeholder relationship using the agency theory in the light of political economy and the political ecosystem that exists around this apparel supply chain.
Yeah, so I think one of the big insights that really struck me from your work here is out of an $8 T-shirt that you pay for at a Walmart or Target, 16 cents of that is direct labor, is what's paid to that factory worker who made that T-shirt. What were some of the context of the methodology that lies behind this analysis, and how do we put it in the context of supply chain theory as well, which I think is an important component of this? Kind of a last note here, which I think is also relevant, is that there's a current crisis going on in Bangladesh, and it's having to do with over $3 billion of orders are being canceled, suspended because of COVID. A lot of big retail brands, including JCPenney's and Macy's and American Eagle and others are canceling or suspending orders that in some cases have already been produced, pushing out payment terms to 90, 120 days in some cases, and then refusing to accept orders that have already been produced in many cases in these factories. So this leaves these factories unable to pay the workers and could very likely result in significant bankruptcies. And many of these workers are living hand to mouth. The wages they make are being used to feed their families. So this is really creating a public health crisis in the country, which is potentially headed towards a humanitarian disaster of the order that no one is even aware about. And Rejaul, I wonder if you could maybe share, some of the things you've heard about, the current situation over in Bangladesh at the moment.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a catastrophe for the country because, first of all, the 81% of the country export earnings coming from the garments industry. And when government need to lock down the whole industry and all the global brand need to cancel those orders because of act of God clause or force majeure clause, I think that's really bringing a horrible situation for all those workers. Because now all of a sudden all those workers are getting out of the job and they're not getting paid. While the government is bringing some stimulus package, but that's no way enough for any of those people. So when connecting to our study, when you see that those workers are paid that minimum far lower than their living wages, a recent survey shows that those workers have really maximum a savings of 16 days to go without job. So within 16 days, if they're not re-employed, means these people will go out of food, and which is a massive disaster for the whole country. And there is 4 million workers directly working on those factories. So it's only, really nobody knows what is the consequence where we are really heading towards.
And we also probably should note that with our research, the numbers that we saw were among the more successful first tier factories. And in second and third tier factories, these people are hanging on by an even thinner thread. And so that tiny amount that we saw that a worker gets in some of the strongest export tier 1 factories in Bangladesh is going to be diminished in the lower tiers even further. I mean, it's already paper thin.
And one last thing I'll probably add is like the way this COVID-19 has been spread really, let's say this time from Wuhan, from a seafood market. But I'm saying that probably one thing is really teaching us that if the worker is living in an unhealthy, poor condition in a slum, and he's out of a basic life amenities and the medical facilities and an unhealthy lifestyle, that probably makes all our life equally unhealthy and equally risky. So means if we really do not pay attention to those people and to ensure really equality and ensure safety of these worker lives, we can make probably a few consecutive quarters of profit. But with the next corona or next to whatever it is waiting for us, we'll wash off all the profit that we make out of this situation. So it's very important we really pay attention to the health and safety and the situation of everyone who works in our supply chain.
Right. Well, thank you both very much for your time today. And, hopefully, I really believe this paper will have an impact and hopefully will lead to some other improvements. And in the meantime, everyone should also be aware of what's happening globally, not just locally in Western countries and the impact of COVID. So thank you both very much and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Dr. Handfield. Bye.